Sometimes life gets in the way of finishing up a college degree, and a bill passed this year could make it easier for adults to go back and get it done. For the details, we turn to the sponsor of the bill, Representative Lowry Snow. Representative, great to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for the invitation.
You bet. Very important conversation and an interesting one as well. Let's start off with the background here. Talk about the need for this very program in the state of Utah.
That's a great question to start out with, because when I started the process of looking at running this legislation, I had no idea that we had such a large sector of our economy, of our adult, not our economy, but our adult population in Utah who had some college, some education after high school, but had not finished the degree. The number is something like 370,000 of our citizens fall into that classification.
And you actually have a personal story with this in your own wife. And she probably represents a lot of those hundreds of thousands of Utahns that you talk about.
Well, I think her story is not unique. And I was saying there are so many of our population, the folks that live in this state who had to stop their education and put it on hold for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it was to support a spouse. Sometimes it was to take care of a young family. In our situation, in my wife's situation, we met at BYU in undergrad, got married and started our family, and it became apparent very early on that she would have to help with supporting me so I could finish my degree. And that support from her continued not only through my undergrad there, but also through law school. And it was sometime after that, after we moved to the St. George area, that she and I began talking about finishing her degree at BYU. It seemed at that time like maybe almost an insurmountable obstacle. But we both felt like it was really important that she finish the degree that she started. And as it turns out, she was able to take advantage of a program they had at that time, and maybe they still do, of consecutive summer programs. And so, believe it or not, at that time we had 6 children. She took 3 with her. I kept 3 in our home in southern Utah. And for 3 consecutive summers, she spent time at BYU on campus, finished her degree, and one of the proudest moments of her life and my life was taking all 6 of our children to her graduation and see her complete her degree. Her story is not unique in terms of interrupting her education, but I think it is unique because not everyone in the state has access to that kind of program. Not everyone has access to a campus close by that they can access in order to finish their degree.
Okay. And hence your bill.
And hence my bill.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty here. First off, who qualifies?
We intentionally call this the Adult Learners Program. And so we identify this program for those who are 26 and older. And lots of reasons why, but one of the main reasons in Utah, we invest millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in our higher ed institutions and also in the students that attend. But very little is available to support the adult learners who would still like to pursue their education, in many cases finish what they started. And so this specifically is a program if you're 26 and older, and it's for online work so that you can get your credits and finish your degree or obtain a certificate.
Okay, there are some preferences that I want to get into as well, but since you brought up online, let's iron that out real quick. Any university, as long as it's online, or specific online universities?
We specifically wrote this. I specifically wrote it so that any that qualify in that age group and can access that online resource from any higher ed institution can qualify for this funding as long as they meet the other qualifications or the preferences outlined.
Yeah, let's get more into that because this bill, as written, does give preferences to some over others. So talk about those qualifications.
What we also found is there are certain industries in our state that are really hurting for trained labor. Folks that are already educated, have their degree or have a certificate who can step into the workforce. So there is a preference to those who are willing to align their completion of their certificate or their degree in certain areas of need.
And can you give us an idea of what those areas are?
I'll give you an example. Education, health care, primarily nursing programs, the tech sector, there's an example.
Gotcha. Also, this is really targeting rural Utah as well. Talk about that.
I think both the governor and the legislature has really tried to emphasize extending programs to rural Utah, to those citizens who live in off the Wasatch Front and in rural areas who don't always have access to the resources that people living in those areas have. So there is a preference given to those living in rural Utah. There is also a preference to those who have economic need, who don't have the ability to otherwise pay for that online tuition cost. Those are some of the preferences, but recognize that in rural Utah, because of our emphasis on extending broadband, that if we can access those resources, or those citizens can access those via internet and their computer, and then maybe also with that additional education access employment opportunities via the same resources.
Talk about the fiscal note. How much money is this providing for this program?
This program has never been done in our state before, which is actually pretty surprising. So we're starting out with $1 million ongoing that will continue to be funded to the Higher Ed Committee of our state. That is the body that will oversee this. But as I've told people, Glenn, I really think this is just the beginning. I think that when this program really takes off and the citizens of our state who fall into that class that I've talked about recognize that this is available, I think we're going to see more emphasis on funding this and allowing our citizens to finish their education and go into the workforce, upgrade their economic status, and also help be productive in terms of revenue to the state.
Okay, Representative, we have about a minute left. Two important issues. One, how soon can people apply? And two, how do they do that?
Great questions too, and I hope there are folks listening. We just spoke this morning with Higher Ed Office. They intend to implement this soon. Application process can begin as early as June. The program will be funded in July. That's pretty quick turnaround. And shortly after that, I think the folks that obtain those courses online can get underway. So we're not looking at a long time downstream.
Okay, we have about 30 seconds left. When we were talking on the phone about setting this segment up, you told me you believe this is the most significant and important higher education bill passed this session. Why?
I do, because when you stop and look at it, we've already invested millions of dollars in this 370,000 people. Some of it directly in scholarships, but we fund millions to our higher ed institutions for capital costs, for buildings, for operations, and these people have already attended there. We've already invested. They will get their degrees, they'll get their certificates, and they're going to be able to move in and supply those needs in the labor force. So it really fulfills two important needs for our state.
All right, Representative, I know this is catching a lot of interest, and we appreciate you coming in this morning and really digging into how it works. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Glenn, for the invitation.
You bet. Stay with us. We'll have more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.